And now something completely different.
Good afternoon. I'm speaking to you live just outside.
I like to think balding is just God's way of saying, now let's see you get laid.
Is it true that if you don't use it, you lose it?
What I'd really like to do is put the greatness of this man in perspective.
The hair loss community has a lot to be thankful for, having you as a spokesperson.
You mean you just call this guy up?
About life and about reality.
And now, America's #1 reality radio show for men. Live from Los Angeles, it's Spencer Kobren's The Bald Truth.
Hey guys, welcome to the show. You know, John, I think maybe I will do some new production for the opening. I mean, the thing is 20 years old, almost. I mean, really, no. I mean, I think this was made about maybe 15 years ago.
I like that intro. It's a brilliant piece of artistic construction, piecing together sound clips and sound bites from multiple sources into something that I think is part of the signature, the likability, if you will, of this show.
All right. All right. Makes my life easier. Guys, the phone number is 888-659-3727. I'm Spencer Kobren, happen to be the founder of the American Hair Loss Association and the International Alliance of Hair Restoration Surgeons. I'm also an author of a little book entitled The Bald Truth, the first complete guide to preventing and treating hair loss, and the author of The Truth About Women's Hair Loss. First book was published 23 years ago this month, March 9th, 1998.
Golf clap.
I walked into Barnes & Noble on 86th Street and Lexington Avenue in New York City to see my book on the bookshelves. It was a big deal for a kid.
Yeah, it'd be a big deal for anyone that's never put out a book. So, yeah, I was just imagining what that would be like.
It was great. Me and my buddy got stoned and we went to the bookstore.
There you go.
Check it out. Look, it's my name, dude. So essentially what that means is I've been doing this. I've been in this field for 23 years, but I have been around the field, involved in the field, researching hair loss, researching every aspect of this cesspool of an industry for about 30 years. Joe Tillman is a guy who pretty much, you know, I hear myself bleeding through your headset, so it could be, I don't know what it is. Jesus. Unbelievable. He's a guy who has...
So damn good.
It's true. He's a guy who's been in the industry for 20 years, at least. But he's also been a hair loss sufferer, you know, since childhood, basically. Since you were a teenager. Mm-hmm. And unfortunately, was one of the young guys, who, just like many of you are out there listening right now, who are finding your information on resources like this, whether it's, well, not the Bald Truth, but, you know, out there on social media, who are just trying to get fixed. They're going to make the same mistake that Joe made, except it's going to be a 2021 mistake, which sadly is even worse than what Joe did. Joe had a hair transplant by a physician who really essentially didn't know what they were doing. But what was lucky about Joe's situation is they were very relatively small cases compared to the fuck-ups that are being done today. If you're fucked up today, and if you're flying or traveling to another country to have densely packed FUE hair transplant surgery with thousands of grafts being moved in a single sitting, if that doesn't work out, it's unlikely you will ever live a normal life. You've depleted your donor area. Go ahead.
I would interject. It doesn't matter where you go. Just like you're right, but it could be down the street.
Yes.
Anyone that's promising, you know, thousands of grafts and high density without talking about the potential pitfalls that you can run into in the donor region. When they gloss that kind of thing over, if you do wind up asking those kinds of questions and they just kind of, oh yeah, that's not a problem, just kind of gloss things over, walk out the door, leave. Because the moment that they start making light, a clinic starts making light of any part of the procedure, and it sounds like they're dismissing it, even though you think it's a concern or you want to know more, they don't have your best interest in mind. Walk.
Well, and here,
deposit.
but that's listen, that's a very sound piece of advice. The problem is, and I'm going to tell you what the problem is. I have been doing some research lately because people have been asking about YouTubers online talking about hair and hair transplant surgery. There are a couple of guys that I actually think are pretty good. They're entertaining. They are like kind of bro science guys, but they're very well versed in their bro science, and they're bringing a lot of good information to the table. So I think that those guys, I could see why younger people are attracted to those guys.
Yep.
The guys that are talking about surgery, though, that are really specific about surgery, I'm seeing a lot of problems, man. I'm seeing, these things are being glossed over, and, it's being made to look as though, yeah, you can make a mistake picking the wrong doctor, but if you choose the right one, everything's fucking roses. And that's never been my message. My message is, well, first you got to choose the right one, but you can still get fucked up, and you still need to ask the right questions. So the information's not being presented globally of what questions to ask, what the real possible adverse, side effects, in quotes, can be of the surgery, the pitfalls. I just wish the people that are out there who are hustling to become influencers, to make a buck, and there's nothing wrong with that. There really isn't. If they just focused more on the truth, everything would be great.
Well, I got a thought on that, but before I share that, I've got several people saying that my audio is low. They can't hear me very well.
It is low. I try to make it as high as possible on my end.
Let me crank it up on my end then. How's this? Is that better now?
Yes.
Okay. Guys in the chat room, it takes just kind of clip there. Guys in the chat room, is the volume better?
If you push your mic away and raise your volume, you won't clip as much.
Now I'm at the max of my board.
All right, I'm going to put my board up all the way for you. Go ahead.
Okay, check 1, 2. Guys hear me in the room? Glatz Fratz says better. Yeah, TT says better. Okay, great. All right. So, okay, yeah, Dominic Wire or Vire. Yeah, that's a bit better. Thank you. Okay, thanks for the clarification. All right. What you're talking about with guys talking about surgery, the problem I've seen, and I know we've talked about this, is there are guys out there that have had one surgery with a clinic, and this is where we can talk about overseas clinics. And then they go online and they start talking about their experience, and then they start recommending the clinic. They've got a link down in the description. There are some guys out there that are doing a good job with what they've experienced. For example, Mr. Rolandes, he's always in our chat room. He's a big supporter of this channel. I think he's doing a good job with his presentation. But there are some guys in Europe that I'm seeing, and this has been going on for a few years. They have contracts behind the scenes with their clinics, and they're not disclosing this to you, the viewer, which a lot of people aren't doing. But they're sending people to the butcher for slaughter, and they don't even realize it. And I know of multiple cases where these guys, a lot of them are if we want to narrow it down, a lot of them are in Germany, and they've actually signed contracts for this, but also contracts for how they present themselves. And I know of a lot of these guys that have regretted it, and they can't get out of their contract. They can't go online and say, I screwed up. And because if they do, then they're getting taken to court. And it's so ugly in the back end of this stuff, guys. I'd like to be able to put together something where you can look at these different channels and figure out which ones are in it to share their information and which ones aren't.
I'm going to try to up your volume here on the game, which is going to cause a lot of room noise probably, but these guys are having trouble hearing you. So
I don't know what the hell's going on.
I will have to agree with you on all of that. Here's the problem that I think, and I think the young guys who are getting into this, who want to become influencers, who want to talk about their experiences, they have to be able to understand. Everyone, especially when you're young, if you haven't been an entrepreneur, if you haven't signed a lot of contracts in your day, if you really don't understand, what legally binding yourself, or in a sense, almost forming like a mini corporation with another company, is, you don't want to sign shit. Period. No. You know what you want to sign? You say, you know what? If you sign anything, it's a simple agreement. I will promote your clinic for as long as I believe that your clinic is doing the right thing. Or I would promote your clinic, given, a very small set of parameters. No non-competes. No, if you decide to change your mind, we're going to take you to court. We have the right to do this, that. If anyone presents you with that, you tell them to go fuck themselves. Because there's going to be plenty of other clinics, especially if you are compelling, if you're an interesting person to watch, if you provide good content, they're going to want to attach themselves to you, and they'll do it within your terms. Now, this is Influencer 101, and I'm not here to try to, get guys who don't have patients' best interest in mind a leg up. Mm-hmm. But I think there are some guys that do, or they would like to have the patient's best interest in mind, but they've gotten stuck, like you said.
Well, I'll tell you another example of how some of these clinics are protecting themselves. I had a clinic reach out to me, or I had the marketing company that was hired by a clinic in Turkey, of all places. Shocker. I know. It's shocking. They reached out to me on behalf of the clinic and offered me a free hair transplant. And they said, but if you don't want to take up this offer, then you can hand this offer off to a friend of yours as long as you document the surgery on your YouTube channel.
You don't want to document
the offer
it.
Was, what?
I'm just kidding. I was fucking with you. Go ahead. I'm gonna keep raising your sound on my board, and it may sound distorted. It's okay. It may sound distorted for these guys, but I'm going to do it. Go ahead.
Okay. Well, the offer was either I can have a free hair transplant, and it's all expenses paid too, by the way. Like my flight would be included, my hotel would be included, which is no big deal, but they would also pay me several $1,000s to make this video. And I could make it for myself, or I could hand the offer off to a friend. I would go with my friend. Again, all expenses paid for both people. I would still get paid. And in order to discuss further, I would have to sign a non-disclosure just to acknowledge that I was speaking to them. I'd have to send a copy of my passport, like all this identification, so that they can track me down if they need to. And that's before I even get to the contract where we discuss what we could do. Now, I wasn't interested in doing this, but I was interested in learning more so I could share it with you guys. But it was that first step. That's how they protect themselves. That is why you don't see a lot of videos online about some of these clinics showing the bad work that they do. It's because they have set up all these roadblocks. I mean, it's smart on their part. It's stupid on anyone else's part to sign, but apparently they have. And I've seen some of these influencers on YouTube talking about this particular clinic and it's all in German, just in case anyone wants to know. And of course, there's no negative press about this clinic, but I happen to know for a fact that they're a horrible clinic, like a lot of bad results. So if anyone is out there saying, why aren't there any bad results about some of these clinics, it's because some of these clinics have gone really far to protect themselves. And that's why.
And we're going to take a phone call in a second. I'm going to go one step further. Don't make any decisions based on anything that you see on the internet as far as any of these clinics are concerned. Do not do it. Period. You know, I'm going through my Instagram feed and I'm looking at this shit, and it's just mind-numbing and almost it's infuriating, because I know, you know, I've been a little bit more active on Instagram, and so people are starting to ask me some questions, and we're talking about people who they're college educated. Not that that necessarily means anything, but you know, these are people who, you know, some of them are relatively well heeled in life. They ask the fucking stupidest questions about surgery. I can't even believe it. Yeah. I can't even fucking believe it. And then all these young kids who come to us, when I say young, under 30, who are like, well, what do you think about this guy on YouTube? What do you think about that guy on YouTube? Well, yeah. Some of these guys are interesting. And I have to admit it, there's a guy, sorry guys, I forget their names. There's this muscle dude who I watched a couple of his episodes, and I was like, huh, this guy's, you know, he's got some interesting things to say. I kind of like his style. He just sits there in front of like a paneled room, like some old 1970s paneled, you know, basement, and he just this guy can just
for a minute.
And this guy can just this guy can just go off. And, you know, I'm not saying that he's a bro science guy. Some of it sounds like bro science, but I mean, this guy's done a tremendous amount of research. He's like the Brian Shelton of 2021. You know, you guys know who that is, but you know, he's one of these dudes. But his stuff is interesting, and I could see that he doesn't, in my view, doesn't seem to be guiding anybody in a dangerous direction. He's just providing all of the different takes on what's being put out there, who's using what for their hair or for their muscles, shit like that. I find that to be interesting. I could see why people are attracted to him.
Well, I've been getting requests to give my opinion on some of these other guys, and like you're saying, the guys are talking about the non-surgical stuff. There's a couple of them out there. They seem to be well read, and more power to them. Like, I mean, it's great. I find it unique that they're reading, most of them, or a lot of the information that they're sharing is stuff that everyone has access to. But I understand the draw, because they're condensing it into something that a lot of guys, because the audience is mainly guys, can digest more easily. They don't have to sit there and find this information. They just go to the channel and they're sharing all this information. They're doing the research so you don't have to, I guess. But it's a good service. So good for them. More power to them. And I'm glad they're out there doing it.
I just got this weird text. I don't even know who this guy is, and I probably basically telling me that he's selling a home for $3.5 million and wanted to know if I was interested in it.
Are you?
You think that I would buy a house in Los Angeles County, A, during the end of this pandemic, but B, with all of the insanity that's happening here in Los Angeles? Now, if it was really, really cheap and I could flip it, maybe.
If it was a smoking deal. But
well, I mean,
a good time to buy.
Says it has a studio in it, you know, and if I could make that happen, then, you know, if I could then flip it for an extra
$3.5 million to get a studio. That's
but if it's a really great property and I can make $500,000 on it quickly, I would do it.
Well, there you go.
888-659-3727. People, it's interesting. Like that, I got some text. I don't even know who this person is. I don't see him in my contacts.
It's one of those. Okay, yeah. They got your number somehow. It's a random number. They don't know who it belongs to. They're just hoping you'll respond so they can get your info.
That'd be something. Oh yeah, it sounds like a good fucking deal. No, it may be. Look, maybe they want to give me the right of first refusal. Let me see the area code that's coming from.
It can be spoofed. It doesn't mean anything. The area code.
Can I just get a little information so I feel a little more comfortable?
Send it to me. I can do the background for you.
Anyway, guys, let's take a phone call. It's interesting. I definitely, and I'm not complaining. It's not a big deal, but I hear myself in my headset. People can't hear you. I don't know what's going on. I got you potted up all the way. And in this studio, the person that's sitting across from me says that you sound quite loud through our setup. So, but I'm seeing that you're coming into my software low.
How about this? I just upped it a little bit on the master.
Up it more.
1, 2. Check.
There you go. Up more.
Check 1, 2. Check.
They should be able to hear you now.
I'm wide open now. I've never been this loud before on my board. It's just bizarre.
It's probably your sound card. You probably have your volume down in your input. Let's take a phone call, guys.
Nope.
Okay. Hey, you're on the air. Who's this and where are you calling from?
It's Morty from Brooklyn.
Holy shit. Hold on, Morty.
Hello, Morty.
Hey, Joe. Hey, Spencer. How you guys doing?
All right, man. What's going on?
Oh, not much. No, I'm doing all right. I'm actually going to be having dinner with Dr. Cole tomorrow. He's in town, so that's going to be kind of fun. We'll see what we can do, what sort of shenanigans we can get up to in post-pandemic New York City.
Good luck with that.
So that should be fun. Yeah, I know. Couple things I wanted to share with the audience. First, question. I've kind of seen a little bit of this. I had an interesting conversation with somebody who had surgery with a doctor that I had spoken with. The doctor was kind enough to put me in touch with one of their patients, which is always a good sign when a doctor lets you talk to a patient. This patient was sort of an interesting guy. He was 23 years old, and this was his second surgery involving hair. His first surgery involved some reconstruction of an eyebrows, and then he went in for a second surgery to do some grafts in the frontal hairline and a few into the crown. And one of the things that I thought was interesting about talking to him is when I asked him about medication, he said, no. He said, I'm not going to take any medication. And he said that the surgery was so easy that if I lose more hair, I'll just have more surgery. And needless to say, I was a little surprised. And I said, did your doctor talk to you about medication? And he said, yes. He said, I'm just afraid of the side effects. And later on that week, I actually saw, I think it was Dr. Body of Darling Butts. He did an interesting video where he was talking about where if somebody came to him, generally speaking, and refused to take medication, he would turn patients away. And I've heard this from a couple of doctors. So the question is to the panel, do you think it is, I guess you could say, ethical for a surgeon to take on a patient knowing full well that they did not intend to take medication?
I think that it's not unethical to perform surgery on someone who refuses to take medication or who can't take medication. I think it's unethical not to fully inform the patient and say, look, you in the long term, you're not going to have the results that you want. We can probably maintain a nice frame of your face. It's going to be limited. You will continue to progress. And if you're not going to be happy with that, then we should not perform surgery. The only way that you could possibly have the best fighting chance is for long-term success is to take medication. Now, you have to understand there are patients who can't take the medication. And there are patients who would benefit from just some hair that's going to be relatively permanent if they understand everything that's going on. Would I have surgery without taking medication? If you're asking me that question, the answer is no. Would a lot of doctors who are performing surgery have surgery without taking medication? I would say probably not. But I can't impart my sense of morality on someone else in this situation, because I do think that some patients could benefit, their lives can benefit even if they're not going to take medication by having small procedures.
My take on this is what you said that the patient said that the doctor said, fourth removed on the cousin side. It's exactly what my doctor told me when I was 22 years old. I asked my first intelligent question when I was in the chair for my second surgery, and I said, what happens if, not when, if I lose more hair? And his words to me were exactly what you just said. Oh, don't worry about that. We can just transplant some more hair.
But Morty wasn't saying that the doctor said that. Morty was saying that that's what the patient was. That was the patient's takeaway.
The patient said that.
Yeah.
Okay.
The patient said that. It's.
Okay.
I mean, I thought I was in the unenviable position of trying to convince this patient to take medication.
Well, it's only
okay. So. Yeah. So you had to convince him?
Well, I felt just as another human being, another Norwood victim, talking to a young man in progress, because I thought of myself at 23, and I could very easily see myself making a statement like that, saying, here I am, 51 years old. I'm like, dude, don't do this to yourself, man.
Well, I agree with that, actually, and I would never, I wouldn't have surgery. I mean, I couldn't go down that path. I know what the long term is going to be, but when you ask if it's ethical for a physician to perform surgery on a patient who's not on medication, that really depends. It's unethical if the doctor doesn't say, look, this isn't the only way you can get your best results and long-term results is if you take this medication. And, but there are doctors who do prefer, and I agree with their stance, not to perform surgery on patients who aren't on medication because, A, they know the long-term results aren't going to be great, and B, they also know that they could be looking for trouble in the long run for their own practices and their own, having to deal with these patients. So I always think it's always a good idea to turn somebody away. But there are cases where a patient can take medication. And there are cases where, if the guy really doesn't want to take medication, if it looks like he has strong donor, even though that's still, everything's on loan, you don't know, and they're willing just to live with maybe a nice facial framing, and that's it, then if it doesn't look like they are losing a lot of, recession or heavy recession in their temporal peaks, I think if it's a specific type of patient, it's not unethical for a physician to perform the surgery if someone can't or refuses to take medication. But that patient has to be very specific.
I hear you,
Morty. I'll give you a tip on how I address cases like this when I have, especially young patients, say to me what you just said. He said that he'll just have another hair transplant. I assume it was just the hairline that was worked on, like it was just the frontal region.
That's kind of what it looked like, yes.
Okay, so the question I always ask in cases like this, or usually is, so how many more surgeries do you think it would take to replace the hair that you still have now? Because that's what their mindset is. Well, if I lose this hair, I'll just get more work to replace it. That's what their thought process is. But the fact of the matter is they can't. Like in my own case, like my crown when I was 22 was in perfect shape. I mean, well, excuse me, it was a little bit thin, but I mean, it wasn't nearly as thin as it is now with all the transplant work I've had. So, you know, when you present that to them as a fact that what they have now is far more than what they'll ever have with 10 more hair transplants, then that usually starts to wake them up a little bit to at least understand a bit more that they can't just go have another hair transplant and fix the problem. And then you can bring up the issue of, well, what are you going to do if you have, you know, additional scarring that you don't like, and you know, all these other issues that can be side effects from the surgery. I don't like hearing this when younger guys especially are so nonchalant about it. Yes, he's afraid of the side effects. I get it, but he needs to at least consider it. I mean, it's too late now because he's already had the surgery. But these are just a couple things that you can say when someone's saying where it seems just too easy. Oh, I'll just have another hair transplant. And someone in the chat room was asking about what about a 45-year-old guy with what was the exact says, yeah, these guys need to be more clear. If a guy is 45 with strong stabilized hair, aside from, let's say, the hairline, the medication isn't really crazy necessary. Well, of course not. This kid was 23. But as a 45-year-old, it's something to consider. And it doesn't mean that he's not, that if it's stabilized now, it's not going to be unstable later without medication.
I actually feel sorry.
I mean, there are other caveats.
I actually feel sorry for this kid. He is young, and I'm glad that he had good work done and that he's happy with the surgery, because that's a great first step. And that he found somebody that was able to make it easy on him. You know, he had such a good experience that he was like, this is easy for me. I would do it again.
Exactly.
But they don't necessarily realize, sadly, even if it's explained to them, that you may not have the opportunity to do it again. Or if you do have the opportunity to do it again, that may be your last opportunity. And the truth is, the experience may not be quite as good the next time around.
Yeah. Yep.
You know, every time you go under the knife, you are taking a risk. And I have known countless guys who have had a very easy, even with strip, first procedure, and then went in for their second, and their lives were destroyed. That's not hyperbole. That's reality.
Oh, I believe it. Yep. Yeah, I mean, it goes back to the whole question of, you know, getting it young and deciding where you're going to put the hairline based on expected loss, and, you know, just managing the whole progression. You know, obviously that becomes a lot more difficult when you aren't taking medication. You know, you ask about history. I asked him, I said, hey, is your dad bald? He's like, yes. So, you know, and then I looked at his afterwork, and his hairline was, at least from my perspective, and you guys know me well enough to know that I'm not somebody who wants to get a Neanderthal hairline, you know, that it seemed a little bit too aggressive. I would have basically held back and left a rather high forehead, and maybe left some of those entries on the sides, just you know, left them uncovered, and, you know, don't put hair down where you don't have hair anymore.
Now, was this the guy that is this the guy that you had a consult with and you've been speaking about a lot?
Yeah, I don't want to mention any names, because I don't think this was the doctor's fault. This was kind of an open question in general. But yes, it was.
Yeah, no, it's not. And I'm sure, knowing this doctor, I know that he probably sat down there and counseled him about the use of finasteride.
Yeah.
But this doctor trained with a doctor who, you know, is excellent. But, you know, sometimes, you know, maybe if this other doctor worked in a younger patient, he would be slightly more aggressive in the hairline as well. I mean, these are the way these guys are trained. So, sadly, a lot of these doctors don't listen to us. They're not like, hey, let's take a look. Now that we have an oral history of all these patients' experiences, let's listen to this oral history and see where we fucked up. They don't do that. You know what they do is they want fucking podium time, and they want to go out there and say that the grand poobah of this and the grand poobah of that, and they've lectured here and they've written for some trade magazine and this and that, and they want to appear as though they are the leaders in this field, and they kind of stop learning after a while.
Mm-hmm.
And in anything in life, you cannot. If you really want to be the best, you can never stop learning. And I talk about my age all the time because I think it's relevant in a lot of what I do. And A, I've been around for a long time. B, I've been doing this for a long time. But C, I never stop learning. I look at some stuff that I did in the way in which I did it 10 years ago. I'm like, that wasn't so great. Whatever it was.
Shit I did 10 minutes ago.
Yeah. Whatever it is, you have to keep evolving. You have to keep learning. And a lot of these guys, they stop. Once they make a name for themselves or think they have a name for themselves, they stop learning. And then they want to become the teachers or seen as the teachers. The whole system's fucked up.
Yeah. It's kind of funny, Joe. You talk about your first and second transplants. The doctor had told you some things which sounded good on paper. Like one of the things he said was that, he was going to plant hairs into areas where you still had hair, and then as your hair receded, it would recede back into the newly planted hair. And I guess if he had done a better job of placement, that strategy probably would have worked well, because at least he didn't try to put hair where there wasn't hair already. The thing that's scary is you see these guys, going and dropping hairlines where they clearly have serious recession in mid-scalp and thinness and mid-scalp and crown.
The only thing that he did right was not to lower it too much. I will agree with that.
Exactly.
But where he did place the grafts, he caused shock loss, permanent shock loss in the recipient area that I never recovered from. So it accelerated my loss, as did the second surgery.
Huh.
So. And then when I receded back into it, I had the ant legs were front and center.
His placement was terrible. Yeah.
Everything aside from the height of the placement was horrible. But I'll agree with that part.
Now Morty, I need to ask you a question. Now that you've done a tremendous amount of research, now it just seems like it's a game for you. Like it's like you got nothing better to do.
It is.
So I'm gonna give these doctors a bunch of shit.
You want me to stop calling? I will.
No,
we love you to call. Wink, wink, nod, nod. Just kidding.
Oh, damn.
No, listen. I mean, but it definitely
for me, Spence, of course.
It definitely seems like it's just kind of like, are you planning on writing a book or something? Maybe you should.
That's something to think about. I might get to collaborate with the greatest author on the subject. That would be kind of cool.
No, I'm not going to say I'll do that for you, but I'll pimp it out a little bit.
Hey.
This is Hair by Morty. That's it. Perfect title.
That's all you need.
Yeah.
That's
Lovely.
All you need.
All right, guys. Well, I'm gonna bow out for the rest of the show and let you guys go. I love you guys. You are the best. I'll say hi to Dr. Cole for both of you, and we'll chat again next week probably.
Yeah, you know what? I want Joe, write this down. March 19th. The hour is 2:50 p.m. on the West Coast. This is the first time we have not had to cut Morty off.
2:50. March
Love
19th.
you, love you, Morty. Thanks for the call.
Cut off there, Spencer.
Thanks for the call, dude.
Take it easy,
All right,
guys.
take it easy.
Oh, and have a happy Passover if I don't talk to you.
Thank you very much. You too.
Take care.
Have a happy weekend.
Good pace up.
See ya.
Bye. 888-659-3727 is the toll-free number. Let's take another call. And guys, as soon as we drop a line, that means the line is open. So everyone who's DMing me saying that they can't get through to the show, you can get through now. And Joe, it will eventually have that busy signal fixed. Hey, you're on the air. Who's this, and where are you calling from?
And now something completely different. Hey, what's up, guys? Connor from Oklahoma.
Connor, what's happening, man?
Hello, Connor.
Oh, not much. Just this and that, and just trying to like get everything solved.
Well, that's a tough calling to try to get everything solved. I haven't solved everything yet.
Yeah. No, you look like you did. Like you're 55 and you still got almost all your hair.
Well, that hasn't solved shit, dude. That solved one issue.
Oh, sorry.
And it's not even solved.
Yeah.
But I appreciate that.
Yeah. So yeah, I just want to talk to you about just the struggles of going through hair loss.
Let's talk about that. That's what the show's about.
Not like the physical part, but just so pretty much when I was going through it, it's like over that time, no one believed me, and it's just like. And then if someone tried to give me advice, it would be like things that don't work. And then over time, when months would just go by, I feel like no one treated me seriously. And I was just like, wait a minute.
Say, what was the last thing you just said? Your phone's breaking up. No one treated you seriously, and what?
And I was pretty much almost losing it at that point because no one was.
Almost what?
Everyone wasn't taking me seriously because they thought, oh, I'm just a kid who has a big forehead. That's literally what everyone thought was.
Right.
Well, listen, it's not even their real thought. They don't even know what they're thinking. You know, a lot of times the people in your life are, in their own way, they're trying to help you. They think by saying, oh, it's no big deal. What are you worried about? You just have a higher forehead. You're not balding. They're trying to allay your fears, but they don't realize that for those who are dealing with it, it does a couple of things. It more or less kind of makes our suffering feel like it's being diminished and that we're not being taken seriously. And then when you're young, and this is the way that I felt, I started to think to myself, well, is there something wrong with me that I'm so concerned about this because no one else seems to be concerned about it? And am I the only guy who's that, hyper-focused on his appearance or the erosion of his appearance? Is there something wrong with me? Am I not man enough? Or am I, whatever. I felt... Now, if I'm going to be candid with you, that lasted for like a week before I said, fuck these people. I'm losing my hair. I'm going to figure this out. But for a lot of guys, that could last for years, and it actually affects so many aspects of their lives. It impacts their confidence in the workplace. It impacts their ability to move forward in any career path. It impacts their ability to, their interpersonal relationships, to go out with women, whatever. So, my mother used to say to me that there's nothing wrong with your hair. What are you talking about? And then people would say I was crazy.
That's what she would say. Yeah. My ex, I would say the only type of people that did believe me was my longtime friend. Because, because he's blunt, he's honest. He straight up told me, yeah, you're receding, bro.
Oh yeah, well your buddies aren't going to hold back. They're going to be like, "Yeah, you're fucked up, bro. That's it. It's the end of it's the end of the rope for you."
Yeah.
I had this situation with my best friend in high school, whom I blame for my first hair transplants. He's the one that was more concerned about it than I was, and but we would talk about it. He would talk to me, looking for support, and then he'd be talking about my hair, and it's like, yeah, okay, I know it is bugging me too, but it's nice to have that support with someone that you think you can trust, that you're close with on that level. And it's funny, like, my life went in one direction, his went into another, and he, like, I had 2 bad surgeries. He went back for round 3.
Oh,
and
back when they were pluggy?
He went back for round 3. It was just more of the same. And he wound up having to he came to me many years later, trying to get his scarring fixed. He had some bad scarring, multiple scars like I had. Try to get some more work done on the top, which he did get. And he was really heavy on the medical regimen with finasteride. Then he switched over to dutasteride, and then he just gave up because it was something that he couldn't hide. Like the work looked a lot better and it was fairly natural, but he just didn't have enough donor hair for the back. So he had some hair on top. He had a wide open crown, and he just said, "Fuck it," shaved his head. Wound up turning into a bodybuilder, and he's got the same kind of head as The Rock as far as shaving it. Like you see no stubble. Like he's always blading it, down to the skin, and it suits him, and he's happy. And he found a solution. But having that support, even with one person, is really helpful. Even if everyone else is just kind of blowing it off and they're not taking it seriously. They're telling you that you shouldn't take it seriously. Yeah. You can tell someone that all day long, but it doesn't make a
And I want
difference.
to tell you something, man.
What's up?
Yo. So, my former ex didn't believe me, and I got so depressed about it that she thought that I needed to take Lexapro.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I was just like...
Well, at that age, I was taking antidepressants. And you know what?
Yeah.
Your ex, shouldn't be telling you that you should be taking any type of medication. But, maybe if she suggested therapy or seeing somebody to talk about it, that would be more beneficial. But listen, it's real, and people do. And I did. I was on. When I was so young at the time, those were the times of tricyclic antidepressants. Serotonin uptake inhibitors were just coming out. Prozac just came on the market. Effexor just came on the market. So, I was taking stuff that was heavy duty for a short period of time. I did it for about a year and a half, and then I decided, you know what, this is not for me. But I was in a really dark place, man, to the point where I was willing to take medication to help my depression. That's why I find it fascinating or interesting when people are like, oh, you risked taking finasteride before anyone knew about it to save your hair? Yeah, I did.
It's now or never.
Because I was willing to take other medications that had so many more adverse side effects listed at the time to try to quell my pain.
Yeah, and that's why I didn't get on any, because I was just putting on a Band-Aid of an issue that was something else.
Well, listen, you want to be emotionally stable as well. You want to be able to feel you can function in this world no matter what, because, none of these medications, taking finasteride doesn't guarantee that you're going to stop your hair loss. Doing any of these treatments doesn't guarantee that you're going to stop your hair loss. So there's still, some, I think, there's some merit to, at the very least, seeking help, getting advice, having the ability to have some talk therapy, maybe getting on medication if it's something that's so dire that you need to kind of kickstart and get your brain back into functioning in a way that you can deal with these things. I'm not particularly a fan of antidepressants based on my own experience and based on the experience of family members and most people I've known who've been on them. In the end, it always seems to not turn out well for these people. Now, I'm sure there are plenty of people whose lives have been saved by these drugs. But like with any other medication, especially with these psychotropic drugs, it really is hit or miss. These psychiatrists it's all fucking guesswork, man. They're like, yeah, let's try this. Yeah. Oh, that doesn't work. Let's try this one. Oh, that's not working. Let's combine this with this, and we'll stack this, and then you stand on your head for an hour a day, and maybe this is going to work.
Yeah.
And then they ask you, which one of these makes you want to jump off a building less?
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah. So,
All right. So obviously,
I got some good news.
So let's hear it.
I ordered my Finasteride, and I don't care how my family is going to react. I know they're scared, but I honestly don't care at this point. I'm almost 20 years old.
Well, look, I think we told you last time. You know, your family only cares about you, but your family's knowledge base is based on partial misinformation. Some of it's factual, and some of it's
maybe the psychological part. But the physical part of the hair, it's going. Like,
yeah, but I'm saying as far as like you taking finasteride, and some of it's just based on fear mongering. You know, I don't know how much real research your family has done on the drug. If they sat down with physicians to try to get some information for themselves so they could feel better about you taking it. But the truth is, and I'm not telling you to take medication or not to take medication. I mean, you're 19 years old, bro. You could fight in a war. You can vote. You're an adult.
Yeah.
This should be a decision that you make between you and your physician.
And I do, like, honestly, like, I would say I've been screwed over with fake things so many times that I had like a gut feeling that the Finasteride I ordered was just going to be a sugar pill.
All right. Well, where'd you order it from? Why didn't you just get? That's actually interesting. You're saying
it's from it's Keeps. It's Keeps.
All right. Well, no. I mean, it's a legit company, and you are getting generic. You're getting generic Finasteride.
Okay.
You know, you don't know where you don't know where the generic is coming from. You don't know how often they're going to switch out to generic, or if they are. But they are selling, just like everybody else sells, a generic form of Finasteride and minoxidil, all generic. So at least you have a fighting chance.
Yeah. Oh, 1 second. I'm gonna have to like head off and do something right now.
Okay. Well, thanks for the call. Good luck, man.
Well, thank you. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm having to cut it short, dude.
It's okay, dude.
It's all right.
Yeah.
Joe was about to cut you off anyway. Take it easy.
I was.
888-659-3727. 19, man.
Man, I gotta tell you though, he's made a nice turnaround as far as his headspace with this, and because he was telling us when he first started calling in how he was doing some of the the more questionable methods, standing on his head and all this, scalp massages to increase hair growth, trying to avoid the medical route as much as possible, and continue to do his research, talk to us a few times, and it's nice to see that turnaround. So unfortunately, he's having to battle his own family, though. I mean, I get it, but I was thinking while he was talking, I've never heard of someone's family so adamant about someone not taking Finasteride as opposed to the patient themselves not wanting to take Finasteride.
Well, I think that speaks to the mass hysteria that we are seeing online. You know, I just read an article. I read two. I read a paper that came out in 2020 about, from some very well-known scientists and physicians in the space, essentially breaking down all of the so-called studies on post-Finasteride syndrome. And obviously the conclusion is that there has been no serious causal proof that the drug caused these long-term adverse side effects. Now, there is some new evidence that came out that Merck may have, or did, and I have to read it again, allegedly suppressed some information from long ago trials that some guys who get off the drug, at least for a few months, had continued side effects. Now, I don't think that they follow these people for a lifetime. But the reality is it's still an anomaly. And it's still a very, very small percentage of those who are taking the drug. There's another article that came out in a very well-respected journal this year that it basically said that post-Finasteride syndrome was some sort of it's like a psychiatric disorder. Now, I am not agreeing with that. But as people start to do more research, and as more scientists start to do more research into the way this has kind of come out, people are starting to, Jesus, this is so annoying to hear myself back the way that I am. Sorry, Joe. People are starting to, I guess, recognize, people in the real scientific community, that there is a significant nocebo effect for many who are suffering with the long-term adverse side effects. Now, I can guarantee there are a percentage of guys who do have them. There's no doubt in my mind. It's too prevalent, and there's too much being talked about to think that at least those 1,000 guys who are complaining aren't really dealing with it. But the use of finasteride has doubled in the last 5 years. Doubled in the last 5 years.
Yeah, it's a huge market.
So
it's bigger than it's ever been.
Yeah. So when I hear this stuff, like, my advice is just speak to doctors who are in the know. You have to make, anytime you put a drug in your body, you're taking a chance of potential side effects. But these are the most rarest of rare side effects if they do occur. And just be aware of it. You know, it's not like, okay, I could either save my hair and ruin my sex life or go bald and keep the ability to have sex. That's not the reality. It's not cut and dry like that. I know, I just feel sorry for these kids, you know, the struggle that they're going through. And there's also a couple of doctors. There's one Indian doctor, man. He's like really, you know, like anti-finasteride now.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking, I'm looking at the stuff that he's showing. I'm like, this isn't even a study.
Well, that's how I reacted when I saw a study that was being marketed as a study or promoted as a study when it was a poll by someone at University of Washington, I think.
I had him on the show.
Washington University. Yeah.
I had him on the show.
Talking to people from a forum.
George Washington University, yeah.
That was it. Yeah, George Washington University. And I remember when this was online, people were losing their damn minds, saying, aha, see, we told you. And I'm reading this thing, I'm like, wait a minute. So everyone that participated in this study, which is actually a survey, were from an online discussion board where people were discussing the problems that they're already having.
Right.
And his conclusion, if I remember correctly, maybe remember, he was saying that if you take finasteride, you have an 80% chance of experiencing sexual side effects.
Yeah, it was something to that degree. I have it, and something actually, there's an old interview. But you know, this is one of the studies, in quotes, that this particular group of physicians who it was in I forgot the paper. I'm not even thinking clearly today. Listen. Not saying that this stuff doesn't exist. Not saying that there are guys out there that really aren't suffering. Not saying that there's some really angry motherfuckers out there who are, you know, I mean, they're suing Merck, and they're involved in these lawsuits, and they're very upset. Yeah. Jerry Cooley brought up something interesting. Well, I don't necessarily think it's completely, or I agree with the premise, but you don't hear a lot about post-dutasteride syndrome.
Yeah.
And you don't hear a lot about guys who've been on the drug, the 5 milligram form for benign prostatic hyperplasia, who have reported long-term adverse side effects from the drug. So the drug's been around since 1992. The first report that I ever read was in 2005.
Yep.
So I don't know what the hell's going on, but I do think it's unfortunate that this kid has to fight his parents instead of just having a conversation with his doctor, and his doctor saying, well, you know what, these are the potential side effects, these are the risks. And it's fine if the doctor says, I don't think it's worth the risk, but at least he has the opportunity to speak to his doctor.
100%.
Anyway, 888-659-3727. Hey, you're on the air. Who's this, and where are you calling from?
Hey, Spencer?
Yes.
Hey, how are you? It's Al from Houston. I've called a couple times before.
Al from Houston, welcome, man.
Hello, Al.
How's it going? Good show so far.
Thank you. It's going to be a better show now.
Thanks. You know, before we get to the reason I was actually calling, it is interesting to hear, like your last caller. Like, it's, I think everybody who goes through this, like, I mean, you guys are one of the few outlets that really talk about it, like how painful this is for young men when they go, when this happens to them. I started losing my hair when I was 19, and it was a kick in the teeth.
Yep.
It was brutal.
It is brutal, man. And
I was I was the first of all of my peers to start losing my hair, and that's kind of an uncomfortable social position to be in.
How old are you now?
I'm actually, I think I'm the same age as you, Joe.
Okay, which is
old.
I'm so old I
I'm
forgot
50,
how old I am.
Yeah, no, I'm 50.
Okay, I'm actually older than you. Thank you.
There you go.
I'm as old as you. No, you're not. You're younger. Thanks.
Look, I'm gonna say something.
You can't be more than a year or two older, because you've said your age before. So I'm probably within, I don't know, a year of you. Anyway,
I'm going to say something that it makes people very uncomfortable when I say this, but hair loss affected me to such a degree that when I was going through the initial throes when my mother died, and it really kind of took away my ability to be present, fully present, while my mother was dying. That's how consumed I was with my hair loss. Like,
right.
This woman was on her
preoccupied and self-absorbed by this thing.
100%, and I suffered with some guilt because of that. Even though I was there for her and I did everything that I could, I couldn't really be present for her final moments the way that I should have been, and her final years. And and also there were. I've been through a lot of stuff in my family. My brother was killed in 2006, and obviously that was heavy. I would say that is one of the most painful things I've ever been through. With that said, I can't say that hair loss was as painful, but it was pretty fucking close. At the time when I started to lose my hair and notice it at 21, the mourning, the sense of mourning was almost as intense as when I lost my brother. And let me tell you, my brother was my best friend. So as crazy as that sounds, people are going to take sound clips of this and say, this Kobren is out of his mind. I'm just telling the truth. I'm telling the truth that we all deal with, that people are afraid to talk about.
Yeah.
No, it's true. It's true, and it's sort of death by 1,000 cuts, because every day you get up and you look in the mirror in the morning and you look a little worse. You know what I'm saying? Like, even if the people around you can't see the small differences, you're sort of very aware of the change in your appearance, and it's a very hard thing, especially when you're a young person.
Yeah,
yeah, and as those changes occur, it just compounds onto the issue. It's not going from one thing to the next. It's adding one thing to the previous thing. So it's not this ever changing issue. It's just an increasingly bad issue. If it's the hair, if it's anything else about yourself that you may not like, it just at that age it just really starts to pile onto you. And when you're 19, your brain's not even fully developed yet. Your emotions haven't settled in, and it's really tough. So when these 19-year-old kids call in, I think it's important for them to have the opportunity to express themselves, because they can't do it anywhere else. Like this kid that called in, like his family doesn't want to talk to him about it. They want to tell him to stay away from the medication, and tell him to sweep it under the rug, basically.
Right.
And,
I remember my parents. I remember they didn't really understand. You know what I'm saying? Like, my dad, he had a full head of hair, and he was kind of like, what are you so upset about? I remember I went to a dermatologist, and he kind of shrugged at me, and he was like, well, you're losing your hair next, and I had to, like, push him, like, do you want to give me some Rogaine? Like, that was one of his prescription, and he was kind of like, if you want. Like, I remember walking out of his office feeling like, wow, that doctor, couldn't care less.
Oh, they don't give a shit. I deal with, I speak to a lot of women, or I communicate with a lot of women who contact me through Instagram. By the way, guys, please, there's a few thousand people who are listening and watching right now. Do you know what that would do for all of us if you just followed me at Spencer Kobren on Instagram? It would change lives. We're not selling anything, man. I don't make any more money for extra followers. Just follow me on Instagram. Sorry, I had to do that. But I speak to these women, and they are blown off by these physicians and dermatologists. And I was just interacting with someone online yesterday or today, and she's trying to find out, like, okay, what kind of doctor do I go to? Because I'm trying to express that most dermatologists know the bare minimum when it comes to hair loss, and they will essentially just give you a battery of blood tests, whether you're a man or a woman. Men usually just say you have male pattern baldness and give you a bottle of Rogaine or tell you to get on Rogaine. This is what you can do. But they do the same thing for women. There's no empathy. It's just it is what it is. And when you're a young guy and you go into that situation and you believe that doctors are there to help you, honestly, for me, those experiences were, I'm not going to say they embittered me, but they really, let's say they opened my eyes to just the lack of caring and also the bullshit of this industry in general. It's demoralizing. It's it feels like your concerns are being diminished by these physicians who you're supposed to who're supposed to be healers. It's ridiculous, man.
Yeah. Rogaine really helped me. I didn't regrow a lot of hair, but it really slowed my rate. Like I got a real benefit out of it. Like I did kind of like I wouldn't even say I stabilized. I would say that, but it slowed, like the slope of the curve flattened out to the point that it bought me a lot of time.
Well, I would say that if you ever read The Bald Truth, and I wrote about this in 1998. I mean, it gave me about 2 or 3 years. It really worked. It was like a Band-Aid, but it definitely slowed things down significantly for me. That I was able to save enough hair that when I found Finasteride, I was able to just kind of continue that process. I don't believe Rogaine continued to work for me. That's why I eventually weaned off of it. But it definitely worked for a while.
Yeah, no, it was. I'm still using it all these years later. But anyway. So let me just switch gears a little bit to the real reason I called. But I just thought since the other caller brought up that stuff, it was worth commenting on.
Sure.
So the real reason I called is I think that we are seeing kind of the end of FUT. I've had FUT myself, and I kind of feel like it's gone from 50-50, 60-40, 70-30. Now we're at about like 85-15. Like you're just seeing on bulletin boards and Reddit and websites, like you're just seeing sort of the complete takeover of FUE, and I've had FUT twice to very good effect, and like I worry that this is the wrong thing, and there's a lot of people getting their donors decimated, and I don't know, like I guess I wonder, like, are we seeing sort of like the death knell of FUT?
Of course, you are, and I think that your assessment is right in the sense, and I say it all the time, it is to the detriment, the long-term detriment of thousands of patients. People will never, ever be able to have the quality of hair transplant that they were once able to have once FUT is out of the picture.
The problem with FUT and FUE right now, like what you said, is exactly like Spencer's been saying it. I've been saying it since before I even went independent. That FUT is going to completely disappear, but it will hang on at some clinics for a fairly long time before it can be said that it's completely wiped out. And the reason being, it's because of a few factors. You've got clinics that are coming in offering FUE because it's a much lower threshold of a skill set. Like, you don't actually have to be a surgeon to perform FUE. You do have to be a surgeon or to have surgical skill and training, not to mention a license, to perform an FUT procedure. And there's a higher learning curve. There's a higher threshold. There's a higher financial investment to be able to perform a proper FUT surgery compared to FUE. And it's easier to promote it as something you can get at a med spa. You know, while you're getting your facial, you can get a hair transplant. It's actually promoted like that sometimes. And so the way that it has been demonized by the FUE, the original FUE practitioners, that set in motion what we have today. And I think it's unfortunate. But like in my own case, I wouldn't have nearly as much hair on my head and the small refinements that I've had if it was strictly FUE across the board. Even if I'd never had surgery to begin with, if I went in from the beginning as a virgin scalp with just FUE, I wouldn't have the coverage in the crown that I have.
And I'll put this on record.
You wouldn't have been able to have as many surgeries.
I'll put this on record right now. If I ever get a hair transplant, and if I still have the type of donor hair that I have now and wear it the length that I do, which I probably will, my first route would be strip. I would want to get the most robust, DHT resistant, in quotes, hair from that sweet spot as possible. And the only way you can move 2,000, 3,000, 4,000 hairs directly from the most DHT resistant area is through strip. And, you know, once you go in there and have an FUE, and a lot of people will have FUE first and then they end up having strip afterwards, you're lessening you are causing peripheral damage, some peripheral damage to the adjacent hairs every time you take out that FUE graft.
Right. And if you have FUE, then strip, you're making it harder to hide your scar.
Not necessarily. I mean, they could, it depends. Yeah. I mean, it depends on how much FUE they take. If they take it from a pretty solid zone and they end up removing that zone and closing it together, you can still have a decent scar, but you just can't get the same amount of tissue moved. You can't get the same amount of viable hair grafts moved. Now, there are a lot of doctors out there that I work with that would disagree with me and say, you know, FUE, you have so many more options now. You could use so much more hair. Yeah, you could use a lot more hair. You can use hair that is most likely not going to be resistant to DHT as long as taking that hair from the sweet spot. But if I want to get 3,000 grafts out of the back of my head right now and pretty much be guaranteed that they're going to grow for the next 30 years, I'm going to have a strip.
It's true, right? Because you're in the heart of the safe zone.
That's correct. Mm-hmm. And the fact that it's been made to look like it's an archaic procedure, that it is somehow butchery. Yeah, there's a lot of guys who are performing shitty work. That's why, like anything else, just like they're performing shitty FUE. But if you had a group or a physician, if you had a clinic who were performing state-of-the-art follicular unit transplantation, who knew what the hell they were doing, there was a very good chance you were going to come away with a really great surgery. You don't see the type of images that you used to see in 2005, 2006 online. They don't exist anymore. You don't see these really high-end, beautiful hair transplants that we used to see, that we finally evolved to. Things are devolving now. And you're seeing...
Right, just sort of Turkish hair mills.
And besides, you're seeing it right here in Los Angeles. I see guys, wealthy people who live right by me, people that I know that have had hair transplants in the last year or two, 2 hair grafts in the hairline, 3 hair grafts in the hairline. You know, they're going to these clinics who, you know, even if the guys at one point knew what they were doing, they're like, I could do even less work now. I'm just going to have these girls do it. And they're not even examining the grafts under a microscope. And whatever's being removed from the back of the head is being implanted in the front. That's it. Nothing's being refined. It's a mess.
I would say that between 2006 and 2009, we reached peak hair transplant as far as naturalness goes.
Yeah.
And having the highest number of results that were, from multiple clinics that could be considered as wow results, where you look at it and you're like, God damn, that's a good hair transplant. Natural looking, proper singles in the hairline, temple point reconstruction isn't flaring out, looking like wings of a plane, where everything is just on point. You don't see that often anymore. And it's amazing to me. Like, I remember talking to one doctor, one IHRS doctor. I don't work with him, but he's an IHRS doctor, and we're talking about the current state of the industry. He does strip. He does good strip. And he was blown away when I told him that most FUE clinics aren't refining their grafts using microscopes. Like, he couldn't believe me.
Right, they're going backwards in technology.
Yeah, 100%. 100%. 25-year-old, almost 30-year-old technology and hair restoration. Most clinics, when I say most, I mean I'm talking about all the new FUE clinics that have popped up in the past several years. They don't even know that's a thing. They have no idea about how anyone would even use a microscope in hair transplant surgery. It's not on their radar. They don't even look at it as something as a relic from the FUT days. It's not on their radar. And
it makes you wonder,
when I tell some people about it, they're just like, why would I do that? I'm taking out small grafts. No.
Do you think that FUT would ever make a resurgence, or do you think once it goes forever?
Everyone is saying that the pendulum is swinging back. It's not. I heard a couple of doctors say, oh, yeah, the pendulum's going to swing back, and it's going to be like, all of a sudden FUT is going to be the new thing. FUT is going by way of the dodo. The doctor, and here's another reason, and they're going to love this. Sorry, I should put the camera on me. One of the reasons why this evolved or devolved in this way is because the politicians and the ISHRS, which is other organization which I talk about once in a while, they really resisted FUE, and they didn't want to teach it. They didn't want to train their physicians. They didn't want it to be even spoken about at one point at their conferences. If the narrative was created that this was, and this is what I was trying to do, that this was a great adjunct procedure. This is a great procedure for those who have either been stripped out or who really need a hybrid procedure to get the most work done. This should be looked at as a solid option in your practice, a tool in your arsenal to help patients. Everything would have been different because there wouldn't have been a struggle or a competition or a fight in the online world or online community. The doctors who decided to embrace FUE wouldn't have had to leverage the marketing that strip was butchery. It would have just been an accepted procedure as part of, hair transplant surgery. And it would not have been an either or. Yes, there would have been some guys who might have still leveraged that, okay, there's no linear scar. But I don't believe that the machine companies would have been able to get the leg up that they did. And I certainly don't believe that the narrative would have been able to be created the way that it has if the International Society of Hair Restoration Surgery and all the grand poobahs and politicians who are trying to run this field really just embraced FUE as a legitimate procedure. The entire industry would have changed. It would have been different. And so many more lives would have been saved. Does that make sense,
Yeah,
Joe?
It's true. Like that term butchery, you see that on all the forums and Reddit. But, I got to tell you, when I wake up in the morning and I look in the mirror, like, I'm very glad I had FUT. Like, I have zero regrets.
Well, I used to be called on forums. I was a FUT shill because I made so much money from doctors who were doing FUT. Like, are you guys out of your minds? You know how much more I could have made if I just said, hey, I need 100 guys just willing to do FUE. I'll make you all superstars. Everyone wants to pay me. And Joe now. That's just the way that it is. That's how this industry works. So we're here just providing you guys with, information as, the truth as we know it. And the truth is, if I were to get a hair transplant today, as great as FUE is and can be in the right hands, I would go for strip surgery first, 100%. And there are doctors who have been with me for 20 years who would disagree with me publicly and state that I'm incorrect about that.
Mm-hmm.
And in my view, they are seeing things through a different prism.
Right, but that prism, unfortunately, is not always what's best for the patient.
I would agree with you.
Yeah, and that's a whole nother discussion.
Yeah. All right. Well, listen, I'll let you guys take some other calls. Thanks as always. Really appreciate what you guys are doing. I listen every week, and I'll keep listening.
Well, I appreciate your patronage, and call in whenever you want. You're a great caller.
Awesome. Thanks, guys.
Take care.
Bye
Bye. So I'm multitasking. I just posted on Instagram. And I'm able to listen.
I just liked it on Instagram.
You did.
Yeah.
Phone number is 888-659-3727. Let's take a phone call. Hey, you're on the air. Who's this and where are you calling from? Hey, caller.
Hello?
Hey, yes.
Oh, great. I'm on. Nice to meet you guys. Thanks for taking my call.
Sure. Where are you calling from? What's your name?
My name's Ross. I'm from Texas.
Ross from Texas. Welcome, man.
So here's the situation. I'm almost 25, about to turn 25, about like a Norwood 2 with some thinning in the crown a little bit.
Okay.
And, I'm not sure what I should do at this point, so I wanted to get your opinion on, like, my plan. So my dad, he's like Norwood 6. He got a hair transplant, never took any medication, anything. The non-native hair or the native hair all fell out. Transplanted hair is still there. He's never really cared, but I care a lot more, and I've started to lose hair earlier than him. So the plan is, so right now, like, give a background, I'm like an Indian dude, so I've watched your videos. You guys are experts in the field. Indian guys have usually thicker hair, and I kind of have the same thing, so I'm able to cover it.
Yeah.
So I kind of look like I have a full head of hair, and no one really believes me. My temples are completely gone, but I do kind of the comb over, so it looks like I'm a Norwood 0, honestly. But I know that I'm not going to be able to keep it like this for a while, and I'm thinning up in the hairline as well. So the plan was, next month there's that new product coming out, that triple hair 16. I don't know if it's BS or not, but at least it's gone through, phase 2, phase 3 trials. So we're going to order that instead of Rogaine and try that.
Why?
And then,
Why?
If that doesn't work.
Why? What is? Listen, I have to give you some tough love here, man. We know what works.
Yeah.
We know what works. What would drive you, besides something that you read on a message forum or on Reddit or through social media, to use something that is in phase 2, in quotes, trials, that you're able to get your hands on now? I mean, how is that even possible?
Well, no, it's going to be. It's not. Sorry, this one is like over the counter. It's they've gone through phase 2 trials, but it's not prescription. It's melatonin and something else. It's not anything dangerous. So I feel like the risk is low, and I care about the data, right? Like I'm an engineer. I work in hedge funds. I'm very data centric, and I trust the data, but. And I think that this is, a safe product. And my reasoning for not using Finasteride is that, I have a box.
I'm glad you're in the hedge fund field, man, because you're going to be a bald guy in 5 years if you don't treat your hair loss with if you really want this to happen, and you really want to save your hair, you got to see a doctor, and you need to get on medication. But I'm listening. I'm open-minded. Go ahead. Finish your thought.
Right. Yeah, I don't know. It's like, I guess I'm being irrational, but I just can't bring myself to take it until I was telling my parents about this, and they were saying that, just wait until it gets a little bad, and then once you get like Norwood 3 or so, just get a hair transplant at that point, and then start taking finasteride, because at that point, the hair transplant can probably give you back to normal hairline, and then you can start the medication.
But if that's even a plan, if it's even in your mind to start the medication at any point in your life, where is the logic to, okay, let me wait till it gets bad enough to the point where I need surgery,
right?
And then
so
I'll take a drug. Go ahead. Go ahead, caller.
Hello? What happened?
I don't know. All right, dude, call back.
Hang up?
No, he's still on, but I think maybe his phone cut off. Call back, dude. Trying to give him a little tough love, but I mean, what is wrong? He's an engineer, or he's in hedge funds. This guy's going to be loaded.
I'm listening to, like, oh God, it just, like I missed part of it, and part of, like, I'm pausing because I'm just trying to put this together in my head. He's following the development of something that is in phase 2 clinical trials.
But now it's being sold as a cosmetic, essentially.
Yeah. But, and did I catch it right? He said he wants to get a hair transplant and then start finasteride?
No, he said that his parents suggested that, he should wait a while until things get worse, and then he could always get a hair transplant to correct his Norwood 3 pattern or whatever he's going to be at the time, and then start finasteride. Now, all the phones are lit. That line went off, and it jumped back on. Let me see if it's him, and if it is, we'll finish the call. Hey, you're on the air.
Hey, can you hear me?
Yeah. So you got cut off.
Oh, sorry. I don't know why. Yeah, sorry about that. I don't know why I got cut off. Okay. Where was I? Oh, yeah. So, yeah, I know. I see where where it kind of seems irrational. It's just, I want to have kids in the future and things like that. And even if there's like a 1% chance of, let's say 99% chance, I'm fine, right? No problem. Drug will be totally safe. That 1% chance of, something happening, I was thinking, why not just wait a couple of years? I don't even know how much this will get worse, because I've been taking pictures. In the last year, it honestly hasn't really, it's barely changed at all. I haven't taken anything. So I don't know if it's just going to accelerate or, I know what it knows. So I was thinking just wait until it gets a little worse. And then.
I do. It will get worse. It will get worse.
Well, it will get worse, but I don't know the rate that it will get worse. Like that.
Does it matter? Do you want to keep your hair or not? Do you want to keep your hair or not?
I do, but I mean, I care more about, having kids and not having problems and things like that. Like after the age of like 32, 33, at that point, I don't care. I'll take it. Because at that point, hopefully I've had kids and everything, before that.
Okay. So here's the truth about anything that's out there that advertises that it can fight hair loss. So it's either a pharmaceutical, like say finasteride or minoxidil, dutasteride, what have you, or it's a nutraceutical, which is all natural, and by all natural, it's implying that there are no side effects. Anything that you put in your body to fight hair loss is going to have the potential for side effects. I don't care what it is, because there's an equal and opposite, for every action there's an equal and opposite reaction. Some people have them, some don't. But the issue isn't, I think you're talking about like with finasteride, you want to be able to have kids. What's the evidence that you couldn't?
I mean, I've read 2 studies on, one was on Nature and one was on like PubMed, that illustrate the fact that there is a significant, not significant, but there is increased correlation between finasteride usage and, infertility.
I've not seen that. I've never seen any study that directly related to finasteride. The only studies I've been aware of is that it can reduce the seminal volume, but not sperm count, and that's what it would affect if it was going to be.
This is a pretty new study actually. So it's actually by Baylor College of Medicine, the top 20 med school. It's a legitimate study. I can
I'd love to check it out. I did hear that there was a study recently that showed that it could lower sperm count for some men. But lowering sperm count doesn't lead to infertility. It just just means that you have, maybe you don't have a million guys swimming around that could possibly connect.
I guess maybe I'm just being over optimistic, but there's a lot of stuff in trials right now that are phase 2, phase 3, and something might come out in the next 5 years. I know everyone says that, been saying that for the last 2 decades, but I feel like I don't know, maybe I'm just being irrational.
But what is it that say something does come out in the next 5 years? Who's to say that something is not going to cause even worse long-term possible adverse side effects or affect your sexual health even worse than finasteride?
That was my next question. We've had finasteride for 25 years, and now we finally have a study where it might reduce the sperm count. So how long will it take to find out if what you're talking about, if you're looking forward to, will have some sort of side effect that's the same?
That's a good point.
Sure. Take the Samumed one that's coming out right now. That's acts on the WNT pathway, right? So that's not even affecting your hormone profile. So if that works, then there could be other side effects, but it won't be hormonal. Is my point. There's you don't know at the end of the day, but finasteride, there is significant controversy. I guess I'm not trying to debate you guys.
Really.
I'm just trying
there's
to
not.
And
so I'm not trying to defend finasteride, but there's not significant controversy.
Well, at least not in the medical
about
community.
This. Yeah, not in the medical community. I mean, there are people online that will just as soon as run you over with a truck than to hear you talk about how it's beneficial. But I look. Let's just back up to the core of this. You're 24? Is that what you said?
Yeah. Well, about to be
25. So
25.
So 24, 25. You're already experiencing hair loss. You think that maybe you're not going to progress. Your father's a Norwood 6. He doesn't care about his hair. That's fine. So the question, I think, is more rather, would you be happy if you kept the hair that you have now and moved on in life and not have any issues? Would you be happy with the amount of hair you have now?
Now, yeah. But I would also be okay if it went back a little bit more. There's a certain limit, it's not. It could receive.
Well,
a little more.
I asked this question because I think it's a logical question where it's like, well, if you care about your hair enough to save it, then why wait until it gets worse? Why not try it now with things that we know that work? Like, you don't have to use finasteride. Try something else that's out there instead of waiting for something where we have no clue what it's going to do. Like, it's still in trials. So I don't understand. And I'm not slamming you. It's I have a hard time grasping that logic.
Well, the logic is finasteride side effects. Minoxidil, I already have really bad dandruff, so I don't know if it's going to aggravate it. And once I start using it, then I'm kind of stuck with it. That's the logic. And then there's nothing really else I can use. Those are the two things. Sure, I can derma roll, but that's not going to do anything without at least one of them. So.
Well, the truth is, once you start using anything, in most cases, if it affects you positively, you got to keep using it.
Yeah, it's all. Yeah, they're all treatments, of course.
So what's the name of this treatment again?
Triple hair 16.
Yes, yeah.
Triple.
That's what's coming next month.
Hair 16.
Like, I'm looking at it online right now.
This specific company is pretty sketch. Their studies aren't that great, but it's worth the shot. But there's other treatments that are coming out in the next 2-3 years that they're actually backed by major pharmaceutical companies, so they have more promise. So I figured that I can at least try this. Worst case, it does nothing, and my hair recedes more. It's not going to get that much worse in the next 2-3 years. And best case, it does something, and it allows me to hold on. And then, hopefully at that point, something else has come. If something else hasn't come, well, at that point, hop on Finasteride and get hair transplant. Okay.
Let me ask you this. I want to, you seem like you're obviously a very smart guy. You seem like you have a lot of basic logic, except when it comes to this, I think. If this, even though it's currently being sold as essentially a cosmetic, when you say it's over the counter, in this category, it's sold as a cosmetic. If this product worked as is, with its website and all of its studies and all the product milestones and all that shit, don't you think the mainstream media would pick it up?
Yeah, that's what we're waiting for.
Yeah, I mean, I highly doubt it's going to be some amazing cure, but my hair loss is at the stage where I don't need an amazing cure, I guess. I just need a little bit of help because it's receding slowly. Everyone in my family is bald pretty much, but nobody went past Norwood 3 or 4.
Don't you think if this was a product that can give you a little bit of help, and I'll give you an example. I have a product right now that is, I have several, almost any product that has the possibility of being legitimate will contact the American Hair Loss Association to provide their studies, follow-ups, their case studies, shit like that, whether it's nutraceuticals, whatever it is. I'm looking at a product right now that does seem like it has the potential to actually create a better environment for people who are taking medication to have better results on that medication. So we're looking at that product seriously. There's not a product on the market, and this is not the flex for you guys in the chat room. There's not a product in the market that is even close to being legitimate that has not contacted the American Hair Loss Association for some sort of endorsement. And we do our due diligence, and as you know, we're not endorsing shit. Now, there may be a time when we do. I'm looking at one product seriously. It's been a few months right now. It may take a year before we're able to make that decision. But these guys never contacted us. Why do you think that is? Because they know that we're going to say, we can't help you. And they also may be exposed. Now, I'm not saying that this product doesn't work. I'm not saying that they're con artists. I'm just saying there's a protocol in this industry. And those who choose to circumvent that protocol probably aren't helping a lot of people.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. No, I appreciate it. The point of this is not to argue with you. I'm just trying to convince myself to take that pill that's sitting in my bathroom.
Dude, this is first of all, this is a great call, and we don't consider this. I want you not to feel like you're arguing with us. We're just trying to provide you with, some insight. And the truth is, I would love for someone like you to come on the show and say, you know what, fuck you guys, I'm going to prove you wrong, and then come back and say, this shit works. You guys got to check it out. That's never happened.
Yeah. Yeah, I know. It's difficult to, a whole family is, several doctors in the family and several engineers, etc., and they're all against this. So it goes to show that, and that doesn't mean they're right. It's just, there's just so much conflicting information.
But your father went out and had surgery, and he's fine with that.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, but it's pretty mild surgery compared to other surgeries, you can get. Like he tore his ACL, that's way more significant surgery than this. This is, pretty minor in the grand scheme of things.
In the grand scheme of things, sure. How does surgery turn out? Forget about his progression.
I mean, honestly, the transplant this year is still there, and it's been 15 years. He never took anything, so obviously the rest is all gone, but it doesn't look that terrible. And I mean, his hair,
that's not good.
Hairline. It's just he has a hairline. It's just there's nothing behind it, and he honestly doesn't care.
But can you imagine if you saw that testimonial on someone's website? It doesn't look that terrible.
I mean, yeah. Okay, the transplanted hair looks good. It's just everything that wasn't transplanted is gone.
Okay.
So now it looks terrible. But it looked great when he first got it.
Well, he lucked out then. That's good. I'm happy for him.
Yeah.
How old is your dad?
Oh. He's like 54, 55.
54. He's an old dude, man. You got an old father. He's younger than me. Anyway, look, I hope that I honestly don't think this product's going to harm you. It's probably not going to do much. It's just going to, it'll most likely just, you'll lose a couple of bucks and you'll move on and waste some time. But I just don't see I guess if it makes you feel better and it makes you feel like you're taking the reins and taking control of your situation, I guess it could help you psychologically. And if that's a benefit, then great, go for it. I just don't think it's going to really help you with your hair loss. And the thing is, you're not even going to know because you said that you're not sure if you're progressing right now or how quickly you're progressing or if you've progressed in the last year or not. You may be stable for 5 more years. We don't know. And then you're going to be like, it's this fucking stuff that I'm paying $100 a month for. And you'll just keep paying for it.
Yeah. I mean, that's the thing. You need a large sample size, double-blind, trials, and I can't do that with the sample size of 1. So,
right.
Yeah.
Right.
Sample size of 1. Yeah.
So I don't think anyone should jump on Finasteride. It's a long-term, you got to take that drug. You got to take it for the rest of your life. There's a commitment. There are real side effects possibilities, even though they're relatively rare and, a much greater percentage of men benefit from the drug than don't. However, it's still a commitment. So I understand why you would be concerned about it.
Okay, I have one also follow-up. So I have a little bit of gynecomastia from when I was, a kid. It's just remained. So I don't know if that's also, gives me that's also adds risk. And it's not that bad. It's mild, but it's definitely there. And
it does add risk, and that's something you should have told us at the fucking first sentence, dude. We would have been off the phone in a second.
We've been through 2 more callers since then. Jesus.
I would say that based on all of the anecdotal conversations, the data, you would probably, and you need to speak to your doctor about that or someone in your family who's a doctor, you probably would be more prone to that side effect of the drug since you were prone to it as a teenager, even though it's very common as a teenager, relatively common. And you have permanent gyno from it, even though it's not that bad. I mean, it's possible. But here's the thing about gyno. Right now, if it's inactive and it kind of just happened during your hormonal surge of becoming a teen, of puberty, if it's re-triggered by the drug, you'll feel it before you see it. And I'm not a doctor, but you'll know it's happening, and you'll be able to get off the drug. So it's not like all of a sudden you're going to grow a C cup overnight.
Yeah. Right.
I mean, at least Joe, that's not what happened to Joe. I think it was a B.
Well, if it was a C, I wouldn't be leaving the house. I'd be...
You don't leave the house anyway.
Yeah, I mean, mine's not
Joe?
bad. I mean, I got some pepperonis, but it's not like an A cup or anything. But it could get worse.
It could get worse, and that's actually that you're throwing in something new into the equation that we didn't know about before. So yeah, I could see why you're more reserved about potentially taking it.
And then so I went to a dermatologist and a hair transplant surgeon. Asked them both. Dermatologist said don't take it, just use Rogaine. Hair transplant surgeon gave it to me immediately. It's just like as if he was giving candy. So yeah.
Wow,
Yeah,
what's his name? That
like
sounds like a good guy. A lot of guys can't get scripts.
Yeah. So, I mean, I feel like all the hair transplant surgeons will give it. And I clearly my temples are gone. Once I pull up my hair, it's very obvious. It's just on the first look, it looks like I'm Norwood Wonder.
Well, all I can say is, your dermatologist is not wrong as far as being a little more cautious. I would be more cautious too if I had gyno as a teenager. But it's something that you will feel, and most doctors will tell you that. You will feel the kind of an ache or a tenderness way before you actually see any puffiness. So,
which makes me ask. Sorry to interrupt. Which makes me ask if you're not fine with taking finasteride now, but you are by the time you're 32, assuming you've pumped out some kids. Are you also okay with gyno flaring up again? Because that's what you could potentially be dealing with.
Well, I mean, I plan to get it removed this year, and if you remove the entire gland, it won't come back. So,
of course,
regardless of medication. So, yeah, I'm not really worried about. Yeah, and again, it's like very minor. It's not. It's like it's one of those things. If I point it out, then you notice. It's not like anyone really notices on their own. It's not to that level, but it's definitely there. But yeah, I'm gonna take care of it at some point. Yeah.
Well, look, man.
It's a complicated situation. I appreciate it.
It's more complicated now than I realized, and I do wish you would have told us about your gynecomastia on the first sentence. But with that said, I think that, everyone wants to go gray market. Everyone wants to go, people have slick websites. People are able to manipulate message forums and Reddits and all this stuff and interject their products into the narrative and into the conversation. It's a fucked up place, man. The hair loss world is a fucked up place. And it was bad when I was young, and we did have our form of social media. We had alt.baldspot and message forums and stuff like that. And it has never changed. It's just scaled. And the one thing that has changed is the fear of finasteride. When I was in it in 98, 99, 2000, everyone was jumping on finasteride, and almost everyone who was online were talking about the results, having positive experiences. A small handful were talking about usually transient adverse side effects. And that lasted for years. Then everything switched. But in general, the industry has always been the same. There's always been a few players who have been interjecting their product or trying to sell a product through these social media resources. And this is just another one, man. There used to be Peter Proctor. I think Peter Proctor's still around. I bought his stuff. And, people swore by it, man. And he would come on alt.baldspot and other places, and he'd communicate with people. And the guy was probably making a fortune. I don't know if anyone's talking about his products anymore, but they were talking about RU58841 at the time. Mm-hmm. Every product that's going through some trial or second trial or third trial is being talked about, and then it's being gray marketed, or it's being sold as a cosmetic. L'Oreal is I forgot the name of their product. That was big for a while. It's just the nature of the game, man. So just know there's a good chance that you're going to be wasting your money. That's all. If you're cool with that, you're probably not going to harm yourself.
Yeah, I mean, I'm fortunate that money's not really an issue. So, in that aspect, I don't really care. But still, it's. I'd rather not go through the whole hassle. I don't know. I got to figure it out. But I appreciate y'all taking the time.
All right, man. Listen, good luck.
No worries.
All right? Thanks. Take care. Bye-bye. Jesus. All you got to say is, I had gynecomastia as a teenager. I would have been like, all right, you're fucked. No, he's not fucked. I'm just saying, just like it would, the finasteride conversation would have been much different.
Much shorter.
Yes.
Yeah. But, yeah. So, guys, when you call in, if you're asking about an alternative to finasteride and you have issues with finasteride, let us know what those issues are first.
Yeah.
Just give us a heads up.
Lead with the problem. Lead with the reason that you're more concerned about taking the drug. Anyway, Joe, I know you
give a reason, but not. Yeah. I didn't think it was like enough. But yeah,
you were brutal, dude. I was like, do I turn his mic off? What do I do? I was in a panic.
Being so mean.
I'm in a panic. I'm like, now we're going to be the mean guys. I know you got to go soon, but you want to take one more call?
If the caller can make it short, then yes.
Well, it's actually up to us. I mean, I try not to cut these guys off, but we can just say, look, you're done. Let's see who this is. Hey, you're on the air. Who's this and where are you calling from?
Hey, thanks for taking my call. This is Sean from New York.
Sean, welcome, man. How are you?
Hello, Sean.
I'm good. All right.
How's it going?
All right. I'll try and make it as quick as
Sean,
I can.
did you follow me on Instagram yet?
That's the first thing I was going to tell you. I followed you the second after you said that.
Thank you so much. Guys, please, there's a lot of people watching this. Just follow me on Instagram. How difficult is it? At Spencer Kobren. Not hard. And you know what? You might as well follow Joe. What's your handle, Joe?
Joe Tillman Official.
Just do it. What's the big deal? Thanks, man. What can we do for you, Sean?
What up?
Yeah, the last caller. It's interesting because I'm one of the few. I think I have tried medication, basically every type of medication except for Finasteride, and it's just. Can you just acknowledge just for a second, even though how unfortunate it is that this one particular drug that is the best drug, basically, it does carry this unfortunate stigma, even if it's a very small percentage and all that, of the potential side effects and all that, and it's just awful. I've watched my hair get worse, and it doesn't affect me as much as it once did, but I still plan on going some sort of route to help it. But yeah, I will not go on a drug for those reasons and others.
I acknowledge that, and it's a horrible, unfortunate situation, and there is a real stigma. You know what I find interesting is, and if you kind of compare hormonal treatments in life, and for men and women, why isn't there that stigma for birth control pills? I mean, the adverse side effects listed that people know about taking birth control is insane. Blood clots, certain cancers, death, not to mention severe adverse sexual side effects in some women. Hair loss, huge. And these women are being prescribed this like candy at 14, 15 years old. And while I am all for the right, women's right to obviously choose and do what they want with their own body, I also think it's important that women are informed about this. And for some reason they're not. And there is no stigma when it comes to taking birth control, which literally changes a woman's chemistry completely.
That's true. That is true. I will give you that, yeah.
And some women will have, if they do suffer from adverse sexual side effects, in some women they've shown causally that it could be permanent. And that's very rare. Mm-hmm. And these women are like, whatever, I'll take it. Lose my hair? Okay, whatever. Doctors are prescribing it. There's no stigma online. There's no petitions. There's no lawsuits.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, it's just kind of comparing. Relatively, it's almost like apples to apples because they both affect our hormonal makeup. And there's no stigma when it comes to birth control. I think I made my point.
So you did, yeah. You did. It's very, very good, very true. Okay, I'll just try and get through what I want to quick as I can. First thing, just for Joe, really quick. There was a good video you did on the Try Guys a while ago. That the guy who had a transplant that really didn't end up looking too well. Okay, but you never went into why you think that was, but at the same time, he never goes over how many grafts he had. So can it be, because I think you might have went over about how it looked like a failure, but do you think it's possible, okay, this guy just got a very small procedure, maybe 1,500 grafts, and it just came out very thin and something like that? Or like, how do you explain that?
Well, let's go back to, let's look at the hypothetical you put in your question. 1,500 grafts and look very thin. Why? Why would it look very thin?
His donor density wasn't great, and he, just thin donor. 1,500 isn't a lot anyway to begin with, especially for the area he was having covered now.
Well, I mean, let's look at when you look at the immediate post-op that he was showing online,
Right.
and then compare that to what actually developed, or even better, if you compare the before to the after. And let's for argument's sake that everything grew. What was the point?
Oh, yeah, I agree. Right. Yeah, that is a good point to make. Right. So,
it's like, what's the point of even having the hair transplant if there's no visible improvement? Which, in my opinion, there wasn't. There wasn't any improvement, and it was a waste of time.
Correct. The only thing I could think is that the surgeons, which is he looks like he just ran to the place. So based off the suggestion is what happened. Maybe these aren't the most well informed surgeons, and they looked at the donor hair and they think that it can get done and it could be a good result. And realistically, he doesn't have a good donor density, though. So you think that's probably what happened, right? That we really didn't have good people at the top here during the surgery.
Well, the donor density doesn't affect the outcome because the numbers that you get are the numbers that you get. So, like if you get 3,000 grafts, versus 1,500 grafts for the same area, that's one thing. But if the donor region itself isn't very plentiful, then it doesn't you're still getting what you get, and you adjust. Like for instance, if you get less than what you anticipated as the doctor, then you adjust the game plan. You make the area that you're going to place the grafts into smaller, so that it doesn't look really thin.
Right.
Was that the situation? Like, was it a situation where the game plan should have been changed? I have no idea because we didn't see that part of the procedure. It wasn't covered in any of the videos. But my opinion on this is that we just don't know how many grafts were placed. Like, all we can do is look at the before and look at the after. And I was very clear in my video where we can't blame the tool. Like, and that's what some people have said in the past is like, well, they're using a robot and, that's the reason why maybe it didn't turn out so great. I don't think that's fair because I showed multiple other cases from different clinics where a robot was used. And there was an obvious difference from the before to the after. And then I showed different procedures, strip procedures, FUE using manual, FUE using handheld tools. You name it, I covered it. And I did that because it needs to be shown that the tool is only as good as the hand that wields it. That's one of my oldest mantras, one of my oldest sayings. And it all comes down to, do you see an improvement as a result? The number of grafts is irrelevant, honestly. It's like, was there an improvement based on the donor hair, the approach, all these factors go into it. Was there an improvement? Was it worthwhile?
I agree.
If you struggle to answer that, then I think that in and of itself answers the question.
I agree. It would still be beneficial I wish we could know how many grafts, though, now, just for...
Oh, yeah. Yeah, no, I agree 100%.
Why don't you call the doctor's office?
Yeah, call it. Yeah, exactly. Well, it could be said, well, that's private patient information. We can't disclose that. But also, it could be I don't know this at all. But there are clinics out there that don't even tell the patient how many grafts because they present the surgery as a small, medium, or large, and there is no discussion of how much hair is actually being moved. So it could be that scenario. I don't know one way or the other, but that is a model that exists in the industry.
And I think this is something that needs to be said just for the younger people who are listening as well. If you are watching a celebrity, a web celebrity, a YouTube celebrity, getting a hair transplant on YouTube or anyplace else, it's probably not a great idea to go to their surgeon. That's it. I'm just being completely candid. Everyone wants to get some press. All these doctors want to get eyeballs. We just had to, unfortunately, make some hard decisions based on somebody who wanted to get some eyeballs on YouTube, a physician. If I would never, ever make a choice unless maybe it was a documentary or something that wasn't promotional. I would never make a decision to have surgery based on someone who performs surgery on a celebrity. In most cases, especially in this field and cosmetic surgery in general, but in most cases, celebrities make bad choices when it comes to hair transplant surgery. And that's just the way that it is. And you're thinking to yourself, well, I've seen some good celebrity hair transplants. Let me tell you, the majority of them are paint jobs that you see, or they've been repaired. I can give you a list, if I was allowed to and I wouldn't be sued, of celebrities who you've seen be promoted internationally for their hair transplants, who came to me, and Joe too, who needed repair. They couldn't work. Big names, A-list celebrities, musicians who were totally fucked up. And these doctors, to this day, some of them still use them if they were allowed to, if they were given permission to use their image as marketing.
Yep.
And they can't say they were fucked up because they signed an agreement.
So, speaking of transplants, the last thing I wanted to go over was myself personally, if you guys have another 2 minutes.
I really don't want to hear it. Go ahead, man.
I went to Dr. Doran for a consultation in Manhattan, who was such a great guy, great experience, very knowledgeable. So my story basically
he's a lovely guy.
I
like Dr. Doran.
Yeah.
So I'm basically a future Norwood 6, I would say. I'm pretty screwed. I have very recessed temples, the hairline's gone back, and everything else is. I'm 36.
How old are you? 36.
36.
Okay.
Jesus,
Medication?
Joe, relax. You sound so upset.
No, I want to know. Medication?
No. I am on. I'm on Rogaine, which I think has kind of maintained it somewhat well.
Caller, how old are you? Sorry.
Yeah, but I know, of course, that the argument is Finasteride, but like I said earlier, it's a decision I made and accepted myself a while ago about that. But the good news about me, and that I explained to him, was I am the last person that is with hair greed, and I would be thrilled with just something like you explained earlier, or Spencer did, as far as if I could just have my face framed again with some sort of little nice frontal region with a few thousand grafts. So basically, he did not have a problem with me not being on Finasteride. He did obviously say it was suggested, but he was ready to. He said he could go forward, starting with, let's say, a first surgery, and repairing the hairline and getting the temples in. And I guess I just want to get your guys' opinion on, because it's a big decision for me. I'm not going to make any decisions right now, but it's a route I'm really considering, as far as, let's say, a 2-surgery plan where I would get this first one and probably get a solid amount of grafts up front to really rebuild the hairline and temples, and then ride that wave for as long as I can, and then years down the road go and get the second one for another couple thousand, and end up with something, just a nice frontal region. And for the crown, I would deal with fibers or Dermatch for the rest of my days, because that's the story. What do you think of that?
Well, if Joe doesn't yell at you, I'll ask him to answer that question.
Who do you think you are? Telling us. No, anyway. Okay, so you're 36. You're taking Rogaine. You said that you will be the last guy to suffer from hair greed. So I think the logical question is, if you don't have a hair transplant, will you be able to move on in your life and be happy?
No. I would not be able to be happy. That's why I do want some hair. I'm talking about, I hope you understand, I'm talking about in the context where it's like, okay, if I have this little bit of hair or a decent amount of hair in the front, am I going to be so upset because it's not dense or because my crown's not filled out? That's not going to be me. Like I use the fiber. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, I understand that approach. I totally do. But then you have to ask yourself, okay, and these are things you got to go over and consider in your final decision. What happens if you get shock loss from the procedure? Can you deal with that? What happens if it doesn't turn out the way that you wanted? You're not taking medication. You're not taking Finasteride. You're taking minoxidil. and your hair loss continues, and the first one didn't quite turn out. So how does that affect your second one? Does it mean that you might need to plan for 3 or 4 to address the first one and then play catch up to where you would have been for your second one when it'll actually be your third? You see what I'm saying? So I think that I think that your idea, it's a common idea that, you know what, I'll just get a few thousand up front, I'll ride that out, you know, I'll just kind of enjoy that for a bit, and then, you know, when the back goes, you know, I might put something up there just to kind of give me something to work with. But there's never the other side that's being thought of. So after that first surgery, well, you know, a few hairs didn't grow. Okay, maybe it's thinner than I was hoping. Okay, you know, I'll just go back in and get that one topped up just to get to where I originally wanted. And then, yeah, you know, when the back starts to go, that'll be my third surgery. And oh shit, I've got 7,000 grafts already used. Wow, after 3 surgeries, you know. And then it's more than just a little bit of hair, but your hair loss is continuing. So these are things just to keep in mind. I like Dr. Doran. I don't I've never reviewed his clinic or anything like that, but I've met him a few times at conferences. He's always been very cordial with me. I've always had great discussions with him. I think from afar, just looking online, looking at what everyone else looks at, I think the work looks good. And from what I've heard behind the scenes, he's, you know, he cares about what he does and he does a good job. That's great. But your situation is yours and yours alone. So I think that moving forward, like if you want to get a hair transplant, great, but try everything else first. If you're not going to try finasteride, that's fine. But maybe talk to Dr. Doran about oral minoxidil. Talk to Dr. Doran about PRP. That might get you that hair back that you want, that you don't need from a hair transplant. Try to do these other things.
It's not going to rebuild the hairline. Or PRP is not going to give me back my hairline.
What about a piece?
That is, well, that was the last thing I was going to bring up. That, you know, Joe was mentioning, and very correctly, that what about all these risks? And I believe me, I know every one of them. I'm a hair transplant maniac as far as research goes. I get it, and I'm not jumping into this. But the only option left besides is, what are my options? I was going to say, and that is a piece. And these are great. They're great these days. And you know, there was a thought that I would give that a try. In my heart, I know I'd rather go the transplant route, have my own hair, and not deal with the maintenance and of that. And on top of that, I guess, you know, it seems like you guys, or at least Joe, I've seen in the past that maybe you're not so. Your message is hair transplant last resort, but you also seem to be not so much on the hair system bandwagon. Is that fair to say?
No, not at all. I think that if you can avoid surgery and go into a hair system and you enjoy it, and you can more than just deal with it, you can actually incorporate it into your life successfully, then by all means do it.
Okay.
100%.
Yeah.
I mean, you could throw it out.
Like there's some. Yeah, it's like you have options with this. You can stop it. You can throw it away, shave your head, and say I tried it.
Right.
You can't do that really with a hair transplant. Like once you have, and you know, Spencer is on board with this. He was actually saying this before I was. I say it all the time. Surgery is the last resort for a reason. It's because you can't take it back. You can't change it. You can't erase it. That you ever had one. It's not possible. If you had strip surgery, you'll always have the strip scar. If you have FUE, you'll always have like dots or something that shows that you had surgery that'll just bug the shit out of you. That you'll be mentally conscious of when you go out and about. Like there is no perfect answer.
I've talked about this, you know, and I actually was speaking to the person who I got this from years ago when I gave it a shot. You know, the hairpiece industry has changed a lot because of, you know, the pandemic, and a lot of the factories have closed, and, you know, it's crazy. People are like, I mean, you talk about women with hair extensions. I see women walking around who are like months overdue to get their extensions redone because they can't get hair. But things seem to be getting back on track. But, you know, I glued this shit on and combed it in, and I was just like, and I talked about this on the show. I was like, this is unbelievable. You know, now I'd rather paint my head right now, but it's a real option, and I don't understand why people don't look at it seriously. I understand the stigma and the possible social ramifications. You have to let your significant other know, or if you're dating somebody, know eventually. But if it looks good, they don't give a shit. I'm telling you, and I reserve that as a great option for myself. And I can get free surgery from anybody in the world. I'm not saying that I won't get surgery one day if I really want it, but it's something you can try and you can throw out if you don't like it. So to me, there's no risk.
Yeah, no, 100%, and it's something I've been thinking about, and I will continue thinking about until my final decision's made, which I expect to be sometime next year. But thank you both so
do
very
yourself
much.
a favor. Try, and you may need to buy several. You can buy them online, try them out, cut them up, try just frontal units, find some. Try that before you go into the knife. At least try it. Walk around the house with it.
Well, yeah, they have partials, and I was thinking of grabbing one of those just to see, that's something that's crossed my mind too.
You can cut your own. You can buy a stock unit, and you get a razor blade. You get a skin unit, and you can cut to whatever. Make a template on your head, and just cut it up. Doesn't have to be perfect your first time. Just have your barber cut it in, and try it. It'll cost you $300 or $400 to give it a shot. You know, get a color match that's kind of close. Doesn't have to be perfect. And then if you really like it, then you can go into getting it more customized.
Yep.
So, all right, man, listen, good luck. Be careful. I'm glad you're doing your due diligence. And just, if you're unhappy with the way that you look right now, you can change it without having to take a lot of risks.
Yeah.
Thanks, guys. Thanks, Spencer. Thanks,
all right.
Joe.
Take care. Bye-bye.
All right. Thanks for calling.
Joe's got to go. Phones are off. She was getting nervous.
Yeah, I got to go.
Sorry, guys.
Give out the websites.
Okay. First of all, follow us both on Instagram. I'm not seeing my follower count go up. Follow us at Spencer Kobren, at Joe.
Mine just jumped 27 followers. Wow.
All right, then don't give it out.
Just kidding.
At Spencer Kobren. Follow me on Instagram. Guys, we are now uploading podcasts. They're not the entire 2 or 3 hour show, but the best segments of the podcast on iTunes and Spotify. So subscribe there. TheBaldTruth.com. Subscribe to that as well. Joe's website is hairtransplantmentor.com. Check that out. Can you subscribe to it? Yeah, subscribe to it.
Yes.
Yeah. If you are listening to the broadcast and not watching it on YouTube, please go to Joe Tillman's personal YouTube channel, which is now called the Hair Transplant Channel. Catchy name. I like it. Works really well. And that's youtube.com/hair transplant mentor, American Hair Loss Association, AmericanHairLoss.org, International Alliance of Hair Restoration Surgeons, that is IAHRS.org. Also, guys who want to catch the UK show, we worked out a licensing agreement where it's going to be on apetojgentleman.com. It's the only place you're going to be able to see the entire broadcast. So check out apetojgentleman.com for the UK show, which features me, of course, and Spencer Specs Stevenson. I guess that's it, right?
That's it.
Until next time.
Good show.
Good show. Until next time. Be strong. God bless. And thanks. Thanks for everything. Thanks for loving the show. Take it easy.
Thanks for liking the show.
Yeah. Oh, by the way, like the broadcast on Joe's page. How many likes do we
We're
have?
49 likes right now.
Make it 70.
But we're not waiting for 50.
We'll just make it 70. All right, guys. We'll see you later. Take care. Good night.
Thank you very much. I'm sorry for any inconvenience you may have been put to prior to the programme, and I'm glad you enjoyed it. And if you could now leave by the exits at the rear, that'd be splendid.